everyone. Welcome. This is episode 347 of Milwaukee's Tailgate Brewers podcast, part of the MKE Tailgate Network. I'm James, joined by Paul, and back from overseas, much to Steve's dismay, is Ryan. We tried everything we could to keep you out, and you came back, and they promptly lost 2 to the Cardinals. So it's kind of your fault.
The facts are indisputable, I think.
Well, you very nearly did, because customs in Atlanta was an absolute shit show coming back. That was we were on about hour 22 out of like 27 straight of being up and moving around. It was a very, very long day, and we were the last people to get on our connecting flight from Atlanta. We had to that airport is massive, and it was just a huge pain in the ass. And so we almost missed the connecting flight. We were the last people who got on, and that would have been just an absolute nightmare. So they tried to keep me from making it back, but it was funny because when we landed in Atlanta, the Brewers were leading and everything was going good. We got in the air, and as soon as we were on the air back to Milwaukee, that's when everything, all hell broke loose and things fell apart. So things were good when we were actually in Atlanta, as far as the Brewers go. But yeah,
good trip though.
Yeah, it was an amazing trip. I'm still not fully adjusted time wise, and my body just does not know where or whatever it is. I also made the incredibly smart decision to go up north for a couple days, like a day and a half after we got back, because a friend was having people over to his boss's cabin, which is not really a cabin. It was more of a palatial estate. So we had a very good time, and it was good, but it didn't help. I was falling asleep at like 8:30 both nights because my body is not accustomed to this yet.
Yeah, and you're getting ready for the school year. Paul, how is bedtime going? Are you into a school year routine yet, or not?
We're getting there. We're not quite into the normal routine yet, and the kids are hacked off that they I think the weekend hit them hard. Last week was their first week back.
Okay.
And then they got freedom again, and they're, I think, pretty hacked off. They have to go back tomorrow, but we're getting there. We're getting there. The routine isn't doing too bad. So
it's a process.
Yeah.
All right. Lots to talk about since Ryan's been away, and you know that the Brewers did rebound there, and we got plenty of questions. And a reminder that patrons over at patreon.com/MKE tailgate get question priority every week. That's $2 a month, guarantees you that perk both on this podcast and on reporting as eligible. Now back into the swing of things on the Packers side, and $5 a month gets you that perk plus the additional exclusive Patreon podcast, the Minor League Extra with Ryan and Spencer, as well as the reporting as eligible mini pods. Ryan, you and Spencer got a lot to catch up on. What are you hoping to talk about the next time you convene, whenever that may be?
Man, I don't even know. I've been paying no attention. It was hard enough just to keep track of what was going on with the Brewers while I was over there. Most of those games took place between like 1 and 4 in the morning. So I would like wake up in the middle of the night and maybe catch an inning as I was falling back asleep on my headphones. But it was hard enough to keep up with that, let alone what's going on in the minor leagues. So I have no idea. I'll be asking Spencer a lot of vague questions. And so what I really need is a lot of good questions from y'all. So when I put up the call for questions on that, you are going to be my heroes this time, because I don't know what the hell's going on.
Paul, are the Packers going to get a good kicker before week 1?
Well, probably not.
No, I keep looking at everybody's waivers and cuts as we get closer to cut down day. Like, is there a kicker? I don't know.
You told cut like Spencer Schrader today. He sucks. That's not an answer. He made 68% of his college kicks. Just not a good sign. If they're going to get a good kicker, it's going to have to be taking a chance on a different rookie who got kicked. But there are guys with better pedigree than both of our current kickers. So you could do that. Still risky. But what they really should have done is just paid a veteran, because that's the only reliable way to get kickers, is to pay somebody actual money that you have seen kick a lot. So I'm still rooting for Harrison Mevis to come in, because he weighs 241 pounds.
Yeah, the thicker kicker. Love
when
it.
We play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, it will be Mevis and Butker, and then I can write about that, and that would be great. So
you got to do it for the content. You know, we're like JR over here, just rooting for the best content. All right. be on the lookout for the next reporting as eligible, as well as Paul's mini pods every Friday. Even if you're not a patron, you can support us another way. You go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this right now. Please do leave us a 5-star review and follow us to make sure you never miss an episode. So, as we mentioned off the top, Ryan somehow got through customs and the Brewers promptly lost the series to the Cardinals. But luckily, that's nothing a series against the Oakland A's can't fix. The Brewers' last series in Oakland ever, maybe, question mark. So that was kind of weird to see.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. Unless something else weird happens.
You
but
never
I don't know.
know with the A's for sure, because while the White Sox, I think, are unquestionably the worst run franchise in all of professional sports, the A's are like maybe a close second, depending on how you want to weight like business operations versus baseball operations.
Right.
And there's no guarantee that they'll have a stadium to play in any given season. So who knows? Maybe they'll be back.
Yeah. Sacramento is the plan for next year. So we'll see if the Brewers end up there.
Vegas? No, you're not. What?
No, you're not. Where?
We didn't talk about this. What are you talking about?
Exactly. It's going to be hilarious when they end up playing in the Raiders Stadium again in Vegas because there's no ballpark there. Anyway, as we record this, Brewers lost on Sunday, so they didn't complete the sweep in Oakland, but still took 2 out of 3. They are still 10 games up on the NL Central and are a game behind now the Phillies for a first round bye. Philly won on Sunday. So it's worth mentioning the Phillies do have the tiebreaker over the Brewers right now due to that sweep in Philly earlier this year. But there is another series coming up, as we mentioned in a question here. So at the moment, though, because of that tiebreaker, it's more like 2 games. The Brewers are behind Philly for that second first round bye. But before we get to Patreon questions, just kind of catching up here. Ryan, how much have you been able to follow and how are you feeling about the team, heading into September now as we get closer to Labor Day?
I've been able to watch most of the last 4 games, so that's pretty good. I was able to, those games that are in the afternoon, I could catch those usually sort of at the end of the night over there. So I saw some of those games, but mostly my experience with this whole thing was coming down to breakfast in the morning and informing my dad, hey, the Brewers won again. And he's like, really? So that was pretty much the extent of the conversations at that point. Was just like, oh, yeah, they just keep winning and they can't stop. So yeah, I was worried when I left. I'm not going to lie that I was going to come back and they were going to be like behind or in a tie or something. And it went completely the opposite way from that. And that was obviously that's great and it's wonderful. But now it's like, well, it feels like this is, I've always had this experience as a fan. I get a lot more nervous when like a 10-run lead slips to like a 7-run lead than I do when a 1-run lead slips to, a tie, because I didn't have an expectation, right? So I did when you lose a close lead, I didn't really have an expectation that they were going to hold it because, it's baseball and those sorts of things happen. But when you have a big lead and it starts to slip, that is actually when I get my most nervous. So this is like that writ large for the whole experience, where I'm a lot more paranoid right now than I should be. 10 games. This is pretty close to ironclad. It would take a monumental screw up for this to go badly. But there's that thing in the back of the head that just like nags a little bit about this and makes me, and I haven't even looked at the playoff odds. I suppose I should do that. So where are they these days?
It's like 98.9 or 99%. It's almost certain. Yeah,
Pacoda 99.7 playoffs, 99.4 for the division. Fangraphs is, let's see here. Fangraphs is 99.2 for the playoffs and 98.9 for the division. So yeah, pretty much ironclad. So I should relax about it, but there's still just that little, if this thing gets down to like 5 or 6 at some point, I'm going to be incredibly just like, about the whole thing.
Paul, how are you feeling about the team lately?
Pretty good, honestly. I mean, they have some holes, but I think I've kind of come to terms and am at peace with how their offense is going to be. They're just going to have a couple of weird, gimmicky holes, and they've got enough power that to still hit home runs. And really, I'm kind of like, I know that they've blown leads. I know they had the couple of blown leads last series. But I'm kind of looking at them like they can just get 4 runs any which way they can, like stealing bases, Gary Sanchez, random home runs, things like that. That's probably going to be enough most of the time. And so that's good. And like the Dodgers series really made me more optimistic that they can catch lightning in a bottle in the playoffs, especially if they do improve the pitching staff. So I'm in a good place. I think that I'm not worried about this lead. 10-game lead for me with what do we have, like 40 games left? This is fine. They're not going to blow this. They're totally good. I am totally on board the get a bye, catch 3 on the Dodgers here at the end. And I'm looking forward, not backward. I'm not going back. Yeah.
Yeah, the offense does seem to be – it's not the efficient monster that it was with Yelich in the middle of it, obviously, and that's not going to change because Yelich is out for the year now, so that sucks. That's a thing that happened since I've been gone. But they do seem to have enough balance up and down and enough plus bats now that Churio has emerged. We were just talking about this. Since June 1st, Churio is 15th in Fangraphs WAR, and I think one of the top 20 in so he is 2.7 Fangraphs WAR since June 1st, 144 WRC plus. That makes him legitimately one of the top 20 hitters in baseball over that time. And so he's a guy that they can sort of center this thing around, and it's been nice to see that he's continued to hit. Even I keep waiting for him to cool off, and he just doesn't seem to want to do that. So that's fantastic. But yeah, the Yelich hole in the lineup is a tough one, and it definitely lowers the offensive ceiling. But like Paul said, they seem to be getting enough from most spots. They don't have a true actual hole in this lineup. As bad as it gets is about 10% worse than the park adjusted league average.
Self-relic's a hole. They have a hole.
But, I mean, even he's like 10% worse than the park adjusted league average, right?
I guess, but he is 99% worse than the league adjusted exit velocity and every other major offensive ball velocity category. So,
sure. I mean, he's got a 334 on base percentage. So he at least does that. This isn't like last year when Bryce Terang was...
Yeah. And he just managed to get his slugging higher than that, which was
hey, look at that. He just went over that. Yeah,
managed. Yeah.
Like last year, Bryce Terang it was like a 59 WRC plus. That was a true hole in the lineup. Like there's nothing going on there that's providing no offensive value. Frelick at least gets on base a little bit and provides something that way. He's not a complete and utter hole in the lineup the way that, like I said, Terang last year was.
All right, we do have questions about Salfree coming up later, so let's just save it for that. Right. But in the meantime, I want to jump into some other Patreon questions. Michael Parr asking sort of about the playoff race and the run to a first round bye. Michael's asking, since Ryan coming back caused them to lose the Cardinals series, will his presence affect their ability to earn a bye? Since the Phillies come to Milwaukee, they essentially control their own destiny on that. Can they pull it off? So as I mentioned, it's a little trickier because the Phillies did sweep the Brewers in Philly.
They're undefeated against us this year. It's not good.
Yeah. So the worst or the best they can do is tie 3-3 and then go to other tiebreakers, Paul. But how are you feeling about that run for the second bye?
I'm not feeling super great. I mean, first of all, let's be honest. Like, we have a lot of ground to make up on at least one team that is better than, like, the Dodgers are better.
Yeah.
They just are. Mm-hmm. Catching them will be hard. They'll have to play out of their mind to do it. But the Phillies, though, I feel like we can manage that. So I'm not happy they lost every game they played to the Phillies so far, but I don't think the Phillies are some juggernaut, and I think they can at least get a couple here. I don't think they're going to win the tiebreaker, but I think they can actually take that. I think the more interesting question on the bye comes with all of the Arizona games we have left to play.
Mm-hmm. It's so many, like literally all of them, right?
Yes.
So
since they have an impact on this race too. The West is crazy because, well, one of the things that we have to think about is not just catching the Dodgers, but also keeping the Diamondbacks and Padres at bay while doing so, because they're also not that far off of the pace. So that's more interesting. But I think the Phillies don't really worry me that much. I think that series is we lost 3. It happens. Whatever. It's not a big deal. We get 2 or 3 from them. I think we probably take that. It's just the West that's going to be hard.
Yeah. Diamondbacks are on a 6-game winning streak as we record this, and they're still only 3 back of the Dodgers. So they are on another second-run surge here. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, as good as the Brewers have been over the last month or whatever, they've actually had some cold spells sort of at the beginning of that have evened that off. I think since the All-Star break, I'm pretty sure the Diamondbacks are the hottest team in baseball, right, in terms of win-loss record. If they're not, they're right up there with anybody else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've gone from being a team that was kind of hovering around 500 to basically they're right where the Brewers are now. They're 75-56 coming into today. Did they win today?
I have not checked, but
okay.
I just assume they have. Yeah, they're still showing us on a winning streak on MLB.com standings. So let's just roll with that.
Yeah. So the Diamondbacks are legitimately hot, and it would have
5 over the Red Sox. So yes,
there you go.
Yeah, so it would have been nice to have gotten those out of the way when they sucked earlier in the season, when they, like when Corbin Carroll couldn't hit anything, and everybody was like, "Is his shoulder broken? What's going on with Corbin Carroll?" And now he's just been like one of the best hitters in baseball again. Since that time, I think he's also on that list of like some of the best hitters. He is. He's 21st on that list in F-WAR since June 1st. So he has also heated up. That is not ideal. There are some other ones in there. We have this series against the Giants coming up, and the Giants, I don't know if you've been following the Grant Brisbee joke about how they just are hovering around 500 forever, and just they'll move a game or 2 away from 500, and then they'll bounce right back to it. And I think, again, today they fell right back into 500 again. So we probably can figure that series against the Giants, because actually, do we have both series still remaining against the Giants, or do we have...
We can't.
I didn't think so.
No, I feel like they went out. They've already been out to San Francisco.
Yes, they have.
I feel like, they got one out of the way already.
Nope.
So
we still go to San Francisco.
What?
Yeah.
You got to be kidding. We do.
Look
at that.
Yeah, we go to San Francisco and the Diamondbacks early. Yeah.
Just put us in the damn West for the last.
Yeah, it really is. So we still have those series against the Giants.
Oakland,
San
Francisco,
series.
Colorado, San Francisco again, Arizona twice. This is ridiculous.
Philly, Arizona. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. And some weird road trips, too, where it's just like, this Cardinals one and then out to Oakland, which worked out fine to me. You go 3-3 on a road trip. That's never a bad thing. But, I don't know. This is... What was the question again here? Where are we? Yeah.
I mean, they're basically, are they controlling their own destiny for a first round bye? Obviously not. I think we kind of set on that, because like you guys mentioned too, I just pulled up the numbers. Arizona 25-8 in the second half, still 2 series against them. San Diego right there too, 23-9. Both of them were just a game over 500 at the All-Star break, and they just cannot lose. So it's going to be tricky. Take care of what you can, but
I think we're done with the Padres, though, at least. So that's not a problem, aren't we?
That was one where I believe, aren't we?
We are. We're done. I don't see any Padres here. Padres are
no.
No.
That was one you did get out of the way while they were still sucking.
Yeah, that's good. But okay, so about the bye thing. First off, the controlling your own destiny thing. There's like 40 baseball games left, so no, nobody could. I mean, yes, theoretically, if the Brewers were to win every game that they played, there's no mathematical way that they could lose the bye. But no, this still really comes down to who is hotter over the remaining time. And I don't think I want to argue too much with the Fangraphs numbers on this, which is they have us, or had us today, coming in with a 22.7% chance to clinch a bye. And that feels about right. 1-4.
1-4, right?
Seems about right. We
just mentioned 4 teams. Yeah,
I think it's very unlikely that they would end up passing the Dodgers, because the Dodgers are just the Dodgers. And the Phillies, maybe give them close to a 50-50 chance to do that. It's because the Phillies have been no great
Yeah.
shakes over the last month and a half or whatever. So give them like a 50-50 chance to do that, but add all that up, and it's like it's still not that great a chance to make it happen. So yeah.
Jeez, the Diamondbacks still have a 4-game set against the Dodgers, and then they finished the year against the Padres. So that West race is just going to be nuts right down to the final end. Sort of a related question here from Luke Wright Suitcase, related to what we've been talking about. They're asking this week, how should I feel about a 10-game lead at the end of August? Should I stop paying attention to the division race and only focus on the Phillies and Dodgers? So, Paul, I mean, you said, yeah. They got this kind of sewn up.
They got it. So, like, okay, since we already kind of covered this a little bit, I'll put it. You should focus on the West because we're fighting against the West. Where the Phillies series will kind of determine how that goes, I think. But we're basically part of the West, so do that. But also, we don't need to worry about the other teams in the Central because the other teams in the Central are just hot flaming garbage. Like, they're not going to get hot and catch us. It's not going to happen. Like, they've all been in second place in the last week and a half, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not
of them,
Pittsburgh.
Not Pittsburgh, but the other three all have.
Yeah. They're just not good. They can't get out of their own way. They all have huge deficiencies and giant holes, and they're not worrisome. Like, they're not going to go on a tear. It is not going to happen. You're not going to have Craig Timber on the south or on the north side of Chicago. So yeah, you can ignore the division. We got this 10 and a half games, or what? It's probably 10 now, right?
It's just 10.
Yeah. I have reference up, so it hasn't updated yet. 10 games with this many games to go is, I mean, if you can start paying attention if they choke this away, because it'll be as historic as anything the White Sox are doing right now if they do that. It is, it is difficult to give this lead up. They're not going to do it. They're fine.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is it's going to take somebody getting insanely hot, and I just don't see any of the teams in the Central being good enough to get that insanely hot. They're like, somebody's going to have to be really, really good to make it work. And so I do worry, just like narrative wise, about them, just being very mediocre over the final stretch and then limping into the playoffs and then a quick exit, and the narrative all kicks in again, and this whole year means nothing. And that part is the part that has me worried. But as far as actually losing the lead, no, that's levels of paranoia even I can't summon.
Things are pretty well set if Ryan's feeling confident about it, and the math's on our side on this. So yeah, just enjoy it. I will note too, the Phillies have 2 more series against the Mets left in this last month or so too. So that could be significant as well, in terms of difficulty there. And the Phillies have really been sort of inversely of the Padres and the Diamondbacks. They were awesome in the first half, and they're only 13-20 in the second half. Probably due for some regression anyway. That's probably what this is. But their schedule's not exactly easy, so it's possible to steal that. Yeah,
and we knew that going in because there was a point, I want to say like late June,
I remember this.
The Phillies had played like 7 or 10 games against teams over 500, and the schedule for them that first half was just, I mean, soft.
We
doesn't
talked
even
about it
begin to
when we
describe
played them, and we were all hacked off that we got swept because they were fakers. They were pretenders. They were the 2022 Vikings. They had by far the easiest schedule of the first half, and then they were projected to have like the hardest or second hardest of the second half, and it actually happened that way.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm mad all over again.
The 2 Mets series actually sandwich the Brewers series, so they've got 3 at home against the Mets, and then they come to Milwaukee for 3, and then they're at New York for 4, and that takes them up to the last week of the season, which is against the Cubs and the Nationals. So if the Brewers don't catch them by then, it's probably not going to happen, but just something to worth keeping your eye on as well. All right. Next question this week is, you're either a smart fella or a fart smella, who's asking, though the Brewers have ultimately been pretty good, how are we feeling about Pat as an in-game decision maker come postseason time? Despite what has otherwise been a good stretch for the crew, it seems a lot of people really latched onto the one specific loss to the Cardinals, in which everyone seemed to agree that Devin got left in for too long, and takes about Murphy as a pen manager really began to fly. In your guys' opinion, do you think Murph will be fine? Or is there actually something more to read into regarding his pen management and in-game decision making? I know the position of the pod is largely that managers are fine so long as they do not overmanage. Is that a concern here, Paul? Or
Ryan's raising his hand. So
yeah, Ryan, go ahead. You're antsy to answer this one, Ryan.
Yeah, so I can't. So that was the game that I didn't get to catch the meltdown of because I was flying. But I did listen to Spencer and Jack discuss this, and the thing that they said that got me was Devin. That was the 5th day Devin was pitching in 7 days.
Yes, it was.
And their opinion was they didn't even the fact he was left in, whatever, that part of it was like that was already, that was compounding damage that had already been done. The fact that he was pitching in that game in the first place was the problem.
Yep.
And I will 100% echo that, especially in this position the Brewers are in. You just shouldn't do that. You don't need to do that. You shouldn't do that in these situations. I know that you get a little antsy because it's the Cardinals and you want to put them away because they are the closest team in the division, or they're around the closest team. I don't know if they actually were in that moment or not, but they're around that. I know that there's a little extra incentive there to do it, but you have a 10+ game lead, for God's sake. Just don't run your closer out there that much, because I'm assuming he pitched a bunch in that, because every game against Cleveland was really close over the weekend.
2 games against the Dodgers, once against Cleveland, and 2 against the Cardinals. Yes. So yeah,
and
5 and
he
7
was
days.
Lights out early against the Dodgers and had a dramatic strikeout of Ohtani. And as time went on, he got into more and more trouble because he was pitching too much in 7 days. And it was definitely a situation where the closer was in because it was a save situation, which are, I think, terrifying words to a lot of us here who maybe used to have blogs about managers doing things like that.
And then the fact that he was left in when he clearly was pretty gassed seems to be the consensus, that he was not throwing competitive pitches late in that outing, but they didn't pull him until he had lost the save, until he had walked in the tying run, and that's when he actually got yanked. And they brought in McGill and all of that. Yeah, that all sounds not good. One thing, well, I'll say a couple things for it. One, you do worry about it less in the postseason because of all the natural off days that you get there. So you're going to have more off days to be able to get away from things like that. And if you can work in a win where you win by, more than a save margin, that can also give you a little extra wiggle room. Those big wins can really, really help your bullpen in the postseason as well. So if you can work some of that in, that could also be good. And hopefully this is a discussion point that they are now discussing this and saying, look, we need to be more careful about Devin. And I think he's been used much more judiciously since that moment, right? Has he pitched once since then?
No, he has not.
No, he hasn't. Yeah. So they're giving him some time off here. And so I think hopefully there's going to be some work on that. When you actually get into the postseason, one of the advantages that this bullpen has, and I think this advantage could be getting even bigger, is insane depth. And so they shouldn't need to do something like this. It shouldn't need to be something that they push, especially with the extra off days that you get in the postseason. But that's more hope than it is. I don't have any evidence for it at this point. It's mostly just hoping that they sort of figure that stuff out. But they have generally done a pretty good job. I know Koenig was in for some save opportunity at one point because the rest of the bullpen was tired when they were in that run. What day was that? Was that a Dodgers game that Koenig was in to get a save opportunity?
I think it was a Cleveland game.
Was that Cleveland? Okay.
I think it was too. Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, they've done some other stuff, and they've done a little mixing and matching there, but this is part of when you're winning close games. It was one thing when they were blowing out the Braves, which was absolutely beautiful to wake up to every morning and find out that they'd blown out the Braves the way they were doing that. It's another thing when, you're playing close games every day like they were against Cleveland, or against the Dodgers for that matter.
I guess semi-related, our next question from Jay Google asking, are we worried about Devin's usage the first 2 weeks after coming off the injured list? So less about the playoffs and more about kind of just how he's been handled, Paul, coming off Yeah.
This is
I
dumb.
mean, 5 and 7 days coming off of 3 months off is bad.
Don't do that. Ease him back in. Like you should. Your job is to manage these. Like Murphy may not be a like great tactical sabermetric manager and more of a rah-rah guy. That's fine. But I do expect to at least get the good parts of old-timey baseball management, one of which is not running important bullpen pieces into the ground and occasionally pitching guys who aren't Devin Williams when maybe it blows up in your face because you need to rest him a little bit. Like you don't need to be doing that. You don't need to grind Devin Williams into the ground. This is ridiculous. Stop. It's bad. He shouldn't do it. It's not a good sign for how he's understanding his team. It ticked me off.
Yeah, it looks like when they brought him back, his first game was on July 28th. He then didn't pitch until August 4th. He then had a couple more days off before he pitched on August 7th, had a couple more days off before he pitched on August 10th, had a couple more days off before he pitched on August 14th. So, and I think there were some save opportunities going to other pitchers during that time period too. So it looks like they did that a little bit, but then he pitched on the 14th, the 15th, the 17th, the 20th, and the 21st.
Yeah.
Right.
That is pushing it and is too much. And I don't think it's ideal for getting the most out of him, for him to be at his most efficient and for him to be doing the best. I know that at times the bullpen gets a little short and you're going to have times when this sort of thing does happen, but it needs to be, it doesn't take much in that run just to like not have that happen, like not go to him quite as much as they were. Like if he's not pitching on that game, one of those games, it starts to look better pretty quickly. But there's also something to be said just for the fact that the Brewers are going to be trading Devin Williams this winter.
I was just going to say, if anything, this reminds me of just running CC into the ground because he's not going to be around next year, right? So you may as well get your mileage out of him now. I don't know if that's too conspiratorial, but that's kind of the way my mind went.
Well, and I'm told somebody mentioned to me, because I mentioned something along this line, and he said, yeah, but Murphy kind of acknowledged that openly in a press conference at some point that Devin may not be along or around that much longer. So yeah, okay. I guess there's a certain amount of ride hard, put away wet going on here, but there's also, you don't want to push that so far that he's not good when you have him, and you need him to be good. Really, at this point, you need him to be good in October. So you don't want to break him before you get to October. That's not good for anybody. So yeah, they need to back off here, but it's sometimes circumstances just sort of conspire too. I wasn't watching all of these games, so I can't say, where they should have or where they shouldn't have, used him or whatever. But
I just think they had too many situations where men were on base and they had already gotten rid of Piguero and he didn't know what to do.
Yeah, Piguero is now gone, so there's that.
Yeah.
That people got their wish on that, which
he'll be back too.
Well, and there was what's kind of interesting to me, because it was like, I understand that there's other stuff going on with Piguero as well, where he was letting in a lot of other people's runs. So there was, runs that weren't his that were scoring on other people's ledgers. Correct. But when everybody was celebrating a guy getting sent down who had a 3.00 ERA, I was like, well, okay, if that's as bad as your bullpen is, then you're doing pretty good. That's a pretty good sign that your bullpen's in pretty damn good shape. If that's the weak link in it, is a guy putting up those kind of numbers. So,
I mean, that's also more of an issue of how Murph was using him more than, a quality of the pitcher himself. But also, yes, kind of a, just spoiled with riches here. And, it didn't have a question about it this week, but it's going to get better, right, Ryan? So, we've already seen, some of the hype ramping up for Yoho and Mizrowski. And, I would be shocked if we don't see them in the next week or two, given that. So I guess even getting deeper here and less reason to use Devin Williams for 5 days,
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because you say if you'd be shocked if you didn't see them. Does that mean one of them, both of them? Where are you at with them?
At least one, probably, right? But then it's tough to do with the roster machinations, because correct me if I'm wrong, do both of them need to be added to the 40-man yet? Which you can move Yelich to the 60-day and create a spot that way. But I am blanking on where their 40-man situation is right now. And you only get, 2 additional roster spots in September. So you're going to have to do some shuffling if it's going to be both. But like Yoho seems to be on the way. If I had to bet, I'd bet Yoho. I don't know if you feel differently.
Well, so I'm looking at who they have right now, and like guys like Zastryzny, I don't know what his health status is. Milner's on the 15, and Mears is now on the 15. That was kind of what we were wondering when they put Mears on there and then brought Ashby back up, which we're going to talk about more in a minute. Was kind of wondering, well, is that an indication that we're maybe not going to see Yoho and Miz, or maybe not both of them? I don't know. Somebody like Tyler J could also just go. There's no particular reason. Kevin Herget is on this roster. As you mentioned, Yelich is still not. He's on the 15-day. He's not on the 60, and that can change. So there's no reason Yelich is on the 10-day, not the 15-day. So there's plenty of things that can be done here as far as doing that. It's just more a question of then in the winter, you have to carry those guys through. So that is kind of a pain. So they have to balance that and decide how useful do we think these guys actually can be. And frankly, Yoho and Miz, they're not putting anyone on base. Like no one. They're not
like
walking
zero.
anybody. And Miz not walking people that's headline news, right? Like that's because that's been his issue is walking people. So the fact that he's not walking anybody, those guys look like they could be absolute monsters. I was actually showing my dad a clip one morning of somebody posted pictures of Craig Yoho's airbender. Are we officially calling it an airbender? Because it's an airbender.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
It's the screwball, yeah. And I was showing him that, and he's like, wow. I mean, it's one of those that as soon as you see it, you just go, oh, that is absolutely wicked. So, yeah, I think we're going to see one of them, but it's also not super obvious who you would necessarily push out now that, Hobie Milner isn't there and Elvis Peguero isn't there. Who you're pushing out becomes a little bit trickier at that point, potentially. Ashby, potentially, but more on that in a minute.
Speaking of, Jack B asking, Ashby bullpen revival? Please say yes. So, I mean, he looked all right today. He picked up a couple of strikeouts in his inning against the A's. And, he's been good in Nashville recently, Ryan, but I feel like, this is sort of where at least some of us felt he'd end up anyway, right? And I guess, is he in the bullpen to stay then? Is this the best spot where he's the most effective? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance of that. I'm looking at his last 5 outings in Nashville starting on August 10th, and it looks like, quick math here, 14 strikeouts and 1 walk over 6 2/3,
which is bonkers.
That's
he
really
didn't
good.
walk more than 6 people in 6 innings. That's kind of been the case for him all year.
Yeah, and if you flip over to Brooks Baseball and look at his velocities since he got moved in July, he got moved into this 1 inning. Or not 1 inning, but no more than like 1 time through the order role where he was, facing at most like 7-8 batters. Since he did that, his fastball velocity, his 4-seam velocity, early on this year, it was sitting in the 93.5 range or so, kind of flirting around in the 93 range. In July, it bumped to 95, and in August, it's now 96.08. So he is seeing a velocity spike in this role as well. And when you start seeing that combined with the better strikeout numbers and all of that, that does give me hope that there's something real going on here, that he is actually improving, and that what he's being asked to do now is more in keeping with what his arm is actually capable of doing at a high level. So I'm not going to say that I think it's for sure that Aaron Ashby is, a good reliever at this point, but I think there's a pretty decent chance that he is actually a good reliever now, as long as you keep him to, no more than 7-8 batters and he gets the sufficient rest.
Paul, how do you feel about Ashby going forward?
Just bullpen for me. I don't need to be witnessing Ashby starts anymore. That let's roll with this and see if it works.
Yeah, I mean, he was always kind of like that swingman to me, but obviously I don't know, of prospects as well as you two, Ryan, or Spencer does. And I think part of the velocity uptick too could just be that we're further removed from that shoulder injury and he's kind of knocking more rust off. But also, like, this just makes sense in terms of trying to return a relatively young guy from an injury like that, right? It just makes sense to me that you just limit him at least to 1 or 2 innings. Like you said, even before the injury, it was kind of a question on if he had really the offerings to get by 2 or 3 times in the order. So this just makes sense to me.
Yeah, this I will be cautiously optimistic about where he's at now.
Yep. All right. Shifting gears, Michael Heitkamp asking, on Wednesday night, William Contreras asked for a new ball after receiving a pitch in the dirt in the 9th against Goldschmidt. He then appeared to toss the new ball to the dugout with a bit of sleight of hand and returned the scuff ball to Williams. If this is in fact what he did, fair gamesmanship or outright cheating, Paul, at that point, I feel like Williams could have used the help. I don't know.
So that's definitely just gamesmanship if he actually pulled that off. That's just good work. If that umpire's job to get the clean ball there, to manage scuff balls, and that's ballsy. If you're gonna pull stuff like that, that is just more power to you. So, I'm all for stuff like that if you can make it work. And if that, now I gotta go watch it. And good spot by Michael if it did happen. But yeah, that's just good work by your catcher.
Yeah, that's trickster stuff. That's gold. That's the kind of good cheating that sort of has a place in baseball. That's being a little tricky. That's not, doing something super sleazy.
I feel like doesn't it usually work where you have to give up the scuffed ball to the umpire to get the non-scuffed ball?
I feel like that's the case. Yeah, because you hand it back, right? And then he gives you one to fire off.
So it seems like a bad job by the home plate umpire to allow that to happen. It's a 1-to-1 transaction.
Oh, well. Viva La Raza. Let's try it.
Yeah.
Jerry Gold, asking our self-relic question that we were referencing earlier. So, question here states, self-relic and Garrett Mitchell, who is the better choice in the short term, assuming Churio and Perkins get the bulk of the playing time in 2 of the 3 outfield spots for the rest of the season? And which one do you have the most hope for long term? Both have been somewhat uninspiring so far this season. Paul, I think you go a little bit harder than uninspiring for them.
They've been uninspiring. They haven't really been bad because they're good defensive players. And
Right.
Mitchell's struggles are well documented on this podcast in that he strikes out like 40% of the time. But he does at least offer a little bit of on-base skill, a little bit of pop. I do wish he was better at stealing bases than Jake Bauers, considering his speed is like 98th percentile. He got caught today too. And he got caught today on the announcers being like, oh, he got a good jump. Like, clearly he did not get a good jump. I know they always say he got a good jump, but like, it would be nice if he was better at that because he is kind of bad at stealing bases for a fast guy. But I have more hope for Mitchell than Frelick because I think Mitchell can hit with power potentially. The strikeouts might be crushing and kill him. That's definitely possible. And Frelick is probably a better he's definitely a better contact hitter.
Yeah.
100% a better, way better contact hitter. But I just don't see a lot of power coming into the Frelick profile. So I think Frelick is like a good 4th outfielder profile of just playing great defense and smacking the ball around a little bit. And he is much better at stealing bases than Mitchell, it must be said. But like, I think Mitchell could maybe still be an actual good player.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He was focusing more on the short term. And I think that in that case, what you're going to be doing is playing the hot hand. Yeah. So they're both going to continue to get time out there. And Sal Frelick, I'm just looking at this now, over the last 7 days, 389, 421, 556, 977 OPS. It's a sample of all of 19 plate appearances, so it means very little. But if you're playing the hot hand, that's the hot hand, so you play him, and If it stops, if it wears off, then you start shading it more towards Mitchell or whatever. It would be nice if one of these guys was right-handed and the other one was left-handed. That would
Also
be
true.
ideal.
Yes.
Them both being right-handed, them both being left-handed is not ideal. In terms of them both facing right-handed pitchers. But you can work around it. It's at least it's the big side of the platoon, so that is helpful to an extent there as well. So, but yeah, this is a case where you're going to be playing the hot hand.
All right, Price Trozen asking a similar question: who do you think would be the best option at cleanup? The Garrett Mitchell batting fourth experiment is not great. Yes, I think Lane Grindle sounds like Jeff Levering if they had Harry Shearer playing Jeff Levering in his Simpsons sportscaster voice. That's pretty spot on, actually.
Doctor.
I mean, the thing is, Lane Grindle and Jeff Levering just sound like each other without the caveat. Like they just, when they talk to each other on the radio broadcast, when you still get that, which is pretty rare now that those are the two guys doing the radio broadcast. It's weird because it's like the same voice talking to itself. It gets a little weird.
What do you think, Lane? I don't know, Jeff. Yeah, exactly.
it is that. So yeah. And they're both good though. I like them. This is not a criticism. Yeah. It's just like,
no.
You need
the Brewers have a type when they look for their voices, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Well, it looked like they went like the complete opposite direction for Mauer, who I know people don't like, but I want to give him more of a chance. I think he does some good stuff that I've heard. So I want to be nice and give Mauer time. I know people, whatever. We'll give it more time. But Mitchell, the thing about the batting order is it doesn't really matter. So
yeah, like the cleanup hitter doesn't matter also. So
right, exactly. It's just not really a thing that I'm going to lose too much sleep over. In general, you want your best hitters up towards the top of the lineup. Yep. You want your guys who get on base at the very top, and you want your guys who hit for power behind them. And other than that, it's just sort of generally whatever. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm vamping here because I'm trying to find out where he is in terms of hot or cold at the moment. I mean, over the last week, he hasn't been hot, so 586 OPS. So giving Frelick more time in that situation makes perfect sense to me. But yeah, I don't know. They're all good defenders. That's the other thing is they don't lose anything defensively out there with any of these guys. They're all really good. So I have to ask a question to you because somebody asked me this via DM, and I'm not going to out who it is, but it's somebody asked me, do I really think Churio is a good defender? And I said, yeah, I think Churio is a pretty good defender. And he said, really? Because the eye test tells me that he's like scared out there and isn't making plays and isn't doing well. And so I was like, I don't get that vibe from watching him that he like looks uncomfortable. And I guess he wasn't an outfielder until just like 2 years ago. So it would be natural if he doesn't look the most like polished out there, but I don't get nervous when a ball's hit towards him really at all. I think he's going to run most of them down. Yeah. So I don't know. You guys are on board with me on that?
I'm on board. And can I really quick, because I want to answer the question too. So first thing, one guy who should hit higher is Joey Ortiz. He hits ninth a lot, and he doesn't even, his platoon splits aren't even that bad. So he should certainly be moved up against opposite side pitching. But like he is one of their best, I would say, 4 hitters, and he often is batting in the second half of the lineup. And again, it doesn't matter that much, but if you're going to put a guy up, it should be him. Mm-hmm. It's weird that they keep him down at the bottom so much. And just for context, he has a 344 on base percentage against righties and a 345 against lefties. He slugs against lefties better, but like he's very effective against both halves. So get that guy at the top of your lineup, please. And on outfield defense specifically, I know from conversations with Jonathan and just reading prospectus and Fangraph stuff, the most important first thing about being good at outfield defense is just raw speed. Mm-hmm. You do need to be good at reads and angles and whatnot as you get older, but by and large, the best defensive players are the fastest defensive players, and Churio is one of the fastest players in the league, like almost everybody in the Brewers outfield.
Yeah, and especially in the corners, you can get a long ways because Christian Yelich was not the most natural and gifted outfielder in terms
Oh,
of
yeah.
getting jumps and all that.
Right.
But because he was so fast compared to left fielders in general, he was, well above average out there. So I think that just that, like, you wouldn't want Churio in center field because that's where, like, the maybe not getting the quickest read off the bat is going to hurt him. But in the corner, he'll make up for most of that with speed and just be fine, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent, the metrics do kind of back that up too, right? Like, yes, eye test, he looks tentative sometimes, but to Paul's point, he's so freaking fast that he can make up for a lot of that and still get to the ball, which might be why, his defensive run save numbers are so good, but his outs above average is actually negative. So, it's not like he has great range right now, but he's got the speed to kind of make the plays to do what he needs to do. I think, again, he's 20 years old.
Mhm.
So there's plenty of learning to do there when it comes to defensive work in the outfield. And it wouldn't surprise me if at some point he is the center fielder. But right now, he's just really good, at least statistically, in left and right. So
Yeah.
I would settle for that right now.
Yeah. Also, they actually have been doing this, but Gary Sanchez should be in the top 5 batters against against lefties. He's very good against lefties. So, but they seem to know that. They put him up there.
And I will note, because they mentioned on the broadcast today, that on this road trip, William Contreras DH'd half the time.
Yep.
So
go.
that is
And
excellent.
he's had his best month since like May as he started DH more instead of catch more. Huh. Who would
Yeah.
have thought?
The fact that they've
Anyway.
been getting Sanchez and Haas in there quite a bit has been, I think, good for him, and they need to continue to do that. And he shouldn't catch, certainly not more than 2 consecutive days, like at any point. And even then, I think most of the time don't have him catch 2 consecutive days very much. There's just no need for it.
Nope.
Give him those days. He can DH. He can take a full day off in here.
Yeah, give some people some practice throwing curveballs,
Yeah.
Exactly.
There is that. Oh my God, there is
Exactly.
that.
Speaking of, Mark Podscarby is asking about Aaron Cifali. Mark's question: given Cifali's home road split, should the Brewers employ the old Ned Yost home road platoon for the 5th rotation spot? Oh man, the Dave Bush, Seth McClung Memorial platoon. Paul, what do you think?
Maybe. So no, you shouldn't. So you should not do that. However, with your final starter, be it 5th or 6th, you should absolutely take factors into consideration when the spot comes up as to who's going to go out there. And that can absolutely include the dimensions of the park you're going to be playing in, the handedness of the team you're going to be playing against, the relative rest that they have, whether the opposing team is better at hitting fastballs or off-speed pitches. So no, you shouldn't do the Yost thing because it's overly simplistic and eventually will burn you, but you should be diligent in assessing which of your 5th or 6th starters is the best fit for the matchup based on all of the giant computers that you have in your building.
Yeah, it was good to see. He's been a little bit better in Frankie Montas. Today's CB Buckner nonsense aside, both of those guys have been better over their last few starts, right? Like, I'm not making that up. They've been generally...
I think that's correct. Montas has actually been good for a couple starts in a row, and today was just a burn the tape kind of game because Buckner was his normal self. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was really, really unfortunate because that inning should not have gone that way at all. And there's not much you can do about that. And it's so funny watching people interact with Buckner too, because it's almost like they feel sorry for him. Because I think everybody likes him, but it's almost like they feel sorry for him. Like, dude, you just completely messed that up and you screwed up the inning. And like, they were telling him that. And like, I think in no uncertain terms, they were telling him that was the case. And yeah, it's just, I don't know why it is MLB handles the umpire stuff the way they do, but yeah, they need to do more early retirements like why am I blanking on it? The guy who just got retired earlier this year, Hernandez.
Angel Hernandez.
Angel Hernandez. Thank you. I want to say Jose because we're watching this Brewer game at the same time.
All right. Devin Bearwolf, our next question this week, asking, what do you think would be more productive for the Brewers? Joey Ortiz winning Rookie of the Year, not that he will, or Paul Skeens winning it and the Pirates losing an extra year of eligibility, which I believe is the rule. This is funny because Matt Eddy from Baseball America noted this, that Paul Skeens cannot accrue enough service time this season to win the Pirates a draft pick. But if he wins or goes first or second in NL Rookie of the Year, which he will. Absolutely, he will. He retroactively gets a full year of service, so he's a year closer to free agency.
Yeah.
This is a weird, stupid loophole. These draft picks, but also weird.
This is the intended
you
impact here.
You knew, yeah.
If you have a guy like Paul Skeens and you don't bring him up, and he is as good as everyone thinks, you are punished for not bringing him up, for messing around with service time. This is how it's supposed to work. They're reaping what they sowed here. They should have had him up earlier. If they had him up earlier, they'd probably be in the wild card hunt instead of where they are right now. So it's screwing them from every possible way, and they just totally messed up the process here.
Yeah,
I mean, I knew Skeens was going to win Rookie of the Year, as I predicted before the season started on this podcast. So they should have known it too.
Yeah, this is win stupid game, or no, what is it? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Games.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is, because they were trying to service time manipulate this thing, and it is going to come right back and bite them square on the ass, and that is wonderful. Just absolutely 10 out of 10, no notes, love it. You are reaping what you sow, as Paul said. This is beautiful. Take that.
I will say it's still silly that Jackson Churio wouldn't get the Brewers a draft pick because they signed him before he debuted. And if they would have waited literally one day after he debuted to sign that contract, they'd get the pick. But that's
the policy is going to work as intended to punish the Pirates. The incentives are completely backwards on the Brewers, where you should reward giving young players more money. That's the idea. You shouldn't punish the Brewers for handing out a contract that makes people rich. So yes, that's bad. It's very stupid.
And the thing is, Jackson Churio isn't going to win Rookie of the Year anyway.
He is not.
Because, frankly, Jackson Merrill is still doing Jackson Merrill things. So I think Churio is lined up here to finish third. Yeah, he's going to be third. Even though, I mean, and granted, that slow start was horrifically bad enough that it's going to put a cap on like how good his season could really look. We're all going to go, no, for the last 3 months or whatever, he was a legitimate star level player. It's just kind of buried under that slow start, which that tells you about how you have to be careful about looking at full season stats, because they can lie to you that way.
All right, Devin Bearwolf. Sorry, was that last question? PJ Wessels, our next question. Ooh, it's been a long one. PJ Wessels asking, is the NL Central a bad division with just the Brewers above 500 currently, as he wrote this, or are the Brewers that good? Also, will you be tuning into the Danny Jansen double games played tomorrow? So if you're not aware, Danny Jansen traded from the Jays to, I believe, the Red Sox, right? And they have a suspended game that they're finishing where Danny Jansen will catch for the Red Sox after having previously caught for the Blue Jays in the first part of that suspended game. So that's amazing. But also, Paul, you said the NL Central is just a bad division. So
it is a bad division. Yeah. I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat that. Like, the Brewers have had a good season. They're doing a good job. They're well put together. Not perfect, but whatever. A legitimate front runner. But the rest of the division just is kind of atrocious. Can't get out of their own way. It's not White Sox bad, but everybody has big problems and can't make runs. And so, yes, it's a bad division.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have one good team in the Brewers, and I think it's pretty clear 75 and 56. They're a good team. And then you've got three aggressively mediocre teams in the Cardinals, who are 65 and 65, down to the Pirates, who are 62 and 68. They're all aggressively mediocre teams. So all of those teams, and there's some variance here, like, the Cubs are actually plus 18 in terms of run differential. The Reds are plus 29. They're decent-ish teams, and if things had broken differently for those teams, they should kind of be in the wild card hunt right now, and they're not really at the moment. I guess they're kind of the fringes of it, but then the Cardinals, who are they're .500, but they're also negative -56 on run differential. So they're actually,
Right.
a pretty, kind of crappy team. So yeah, I think this is. I wouldn't say it's a bad division. I would just say that like it's the Brewers and then a bunch of mediocrity.
It's like the old school AL Centrals, right? Where the Twins would just kind of win by default and the rest were kind of muddled in the middle there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, Paul, you had a quote that ran today. Was that a Nightingale piece?
Yes.
Yeah, you
That
want
was
to
a
talk about that
Nightingale
real
piece.
quick?
After I pull it back up and remember
Okay.
what it was. Sure.
Yeah, this was the quote. They were talking to Wade Miley, and we're talking about like the Brewers in the NL Central and how their sort of place in it. And Miley made some pretty firm claims about what he thought the Brewers' place in the division is. You got it now, Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what he said is that interesting. I'll do it. It's like nobody gives us a chance. People always count us out, but it's an expectation here in Milwaukee to be in the playoffs every single year. This is our division. I think the thing that grabbed my attention was that Wade Miley remains and travels with the team. I did not know that, and
Hanging out.
I'm surprised to learn it. But that's good. It's nice that he feels camaraderie there and like he wants to be a part of the team. It speaks well to their clubhouse chemistry and generally how they do things. So that's all good. But it's weird that Wade Miley is traveling with the team and hanging out with the team.
Well, I think what's going to happen here, we all know, when Craig Counsell comes in, swoops in with a giant sack of cash, and gives Chris Hook 4 times his current salary with the Brewers to go be the pitching coordinator for the Cubs. Wade Miley is going to end up being like, I don't know if he'll be the pitching coach. It might just be Jim Henderson
coach.
that slides up. But Miley's going to end up being a pitching coach of some stripe for the Brewers. I mean, he practically is right now. Let's face it. Like, he basically is a pitching coach now and has been since he's been back this last time. So, yeah, this is just kind of where this is headed. But, yeah, I mean, you see him in the dugout. I noticed Woodruff at home. I don't know how much he travels with the team, but I've noticed him definitely at home with the team. So, yeah, I think some of these guys are around, and they value having presences that are positive around, and those guys would certainly qualify. So, yeah.
All right, last couple questions this week. Morgoth 10 asking, or I should say saying, okay, I cannot be the only person that effing hates the Bally broadcast for doing green screen style shopped-in ads behind home plate. The feathering around the players is awful and distracting, and during the Garrett Mitchell at-bat I just watched, I saw through Mitchell about 4 or 5 different times. To be clear, this has been a problem all year, but today's game is laughable. Anyone else incredibly bothered by this? I don't remember seeing it until this year. Probably nothing to be done about this. Anyway, it's incredibly funny to watch the outfield camera show an ad, cut to a close-up, and lo and behold, it's the actual physical ad, then cut back, and it's different. Really just feels like shoddy work all around. And then we've got...
Not true.
Jack.
That is actually why Garrett Mitchell strikes out so much.
Yeah.
We've solved the problem.
Yeah. Jack B commented on this on Patreon going, oh man, this drives me absolutely insane. It's just terrible that they do it with the behind the plate ad. So it literally impacts every single pitch in the game. End game capitalism. They are the only product for Brewers broadcasting, so they have no incentive to make the product better and willingly degrade the product for additional profit. I don't know if I'd go that far, but they got to do what they got to do to sell the ads. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this has been pretty standard. Sunday Night Baseball's been doing this for 2 decades or something.
Yeah,
because you'd see
and
that green
shoddy
screen
all the
back
time.
there.
Yeah,
and it always looks pretty crappy when they catch it on a bad angle or whatever. And then this is late stage capitalism. This is what this is. This is just they're trying to squeeze every possible dime out of what they're getting here, and fine, whatever. They're not stealing sand, at least, so it's fine.
I don't think you can blame capitalism for baseball issues because we have a massive antitrust exemption that governs all of baseball.
It's not capitalism
so
by
it is
definition.
literally not capitalism. So this is something else.
It's just whatever you want to say, like a dystopian future. So there you go. All right. Now it's time for the question that I pulled aside last week because Ryan, it specifically asked for your advice. I know Steve provided some recs here, but maybe you can add the cheese for Wilson Contreras' wine. Asking first, who's the bigger turd? Mark Atanasio for getting caught red-handed, probably right after a phone call telling Matt Arnold that he can't afford to extend Adames, referencing the stealing sand thing. Bryce Wilson or Yelich's lower back. By the way, Ryan, I was also at the Fish show Saturday a couple of weeks ago, mostly to support a friend that's been dying to see them since he was in high school. I'm still trying to fully appreciate their sound, but starting to get into it. What live shows would you recommend me watching to help build my appreciation for Fish? For more context, I'm more an Americana roots kind of hazy IPA drinking kind of guy. So, Ryan, what do you got for him?
So first off, that had to be the Mark Atanasio
Yes.
sand stealing thing. Yeah, okay. So Steve's recommendation from '94 is a good one. That's a good era to get into. From that, I would say just amusingly, my first show, which was July 8th, 2000 at Alpine Valley, was actually released by the band as one of their Live Fish releases. It was Live Fish Volume 5 when they put out those in, it's like 2001 or so is when they put that stuff out. And that's a really good, they call it the ultimate average show where everything is just really solid. And so from top to bottom, you just get solid after solid after solid after solid. So it's really good and very interesting that way. But he mentioned specifically, I actually missed this when I was looking at this before, the Americana roots part of it. You might respond more to the album, specifically Billy Breathes, has some acoustic stuff on it. That era has more acoustic stuff. I think you might want to check out some of those things. Waste, Taste, some of those songs will be maybe to your liking. Strange Design was one that was from that era that didn't get released. But some of that stuff I think will appeal to you, and it is worth checking out. But yeah, in general, you got a very good first show because you got a 40-minute simple, and that was incredible. So we enjoyed the hell out of that thing. We were just discussing that. And then what was so funny about it is I was singing its praises to you guys that night, and then literally I think it was the next night or the night after, this is the Tuesday night following, they actually ripped off like a 45-minute other song, and so they did that just like 2 days later, which kind of got everybody's attention once again. So I would say focus on specifically that Billy Breathes era. There's some Live Fish releases from the summer of 95, 96 that are worth checking out. So those would be things to check out.
There you go. Can't do much better than that. Paul, any other?
Can I give advice really quick?
Yeah.
So you should listen to the album versions of Heavy Things, Bouncing Around the Room, Backwards Down the Number Line, and Farmhouse. And if you like all four of those, then don't listen to any other Fish songs because you won't like them.
Okay, so this is 100% correct, but how do you know that, Paul?
That's just the observation of living life.
Okay.
Personal experience.
Yeah, personal
I
experience.
didn't know you knew that much about Fish, but that is 100% correct. Yes, those are the songs that get people's attention on the radio.
Once you're done with that, you
form.
can just listen to Touch of Grey and go through the same process, and then you're done with a lot of the American canon of jam band music.
Touch of Grey and Casey Jones. Yes. And Truckin'.
And Truckin', yes, also.
Or as Ann Coulter calls it famously, what a long, strange trip it's been.
Yeah, well, okay. That'll do it for Patreon questions this week. Thanks to everybody sending those in. Patreon.com/MKE tailgate. $2 a month gets you question priority both here and on reporting as eligible as Packers season gets ever nearer. We also give shout outs to new patrons. Ryan, I've got some names here. Would you like to read them?
Sure. Neil Olson, Ryan Berg, Jonathan, Who is
Just
it?
Jonathan.
Just Jonathan,
Jonathan.
who wasn't the Jonathan I thought it might be. And then, because he's already a member a long time.
He is.
And then Jace, Templar, are the 4 newbies or returning people, because we're in that time of year now where people are starting to come back, like the Swallows returning. Is it to Capistrano or from Capistrano?
No idea.
I'm not familiar with the Swallows of Capistrano.
No, it's definitely a phrase, but I don't know exactly what the phrase is. But yeah, it's that time of year when the people who have left seasonally are returning back to the fold for the football season. So it's that time.
There we go. Definitely looking forward to that. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining up.
Going to be a lot of Brazil-themed bumper music coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Ooh, I can't wait to see what you got lined up here. That's my favorite part. No offense of reporting it's eligible. It's just what's Paul gonna do with the music. I love it. All right, that'll do it for this week for Milwaukee's Tailgate. We'll see how the Brewers wrap up August. The season's kind of flown by, right? And they've got a couple home series now against the Giants and the Reds before we head into September. So we'll see how they do there. I won't be here for Labor Day weekend. I know Paul's going to be out too, but Ryan, we'll put something together. There will be an episode next week, and they'll cover all of that next time here on Milwaukee's Tailgate. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy your holiday weekend, and we'll see you then.